Hey, Nancy here, and look who I've got on. It was like a magic wand, and they appeared. Brian Flanagan, Jeff Robertson, hi, and good morning. So we're here, and I don't know why actually, because it's a little uh, last minute. Brian texted me on something, and I said, sure. And here we go. So I'm turning it over to Brian. Take
Well,
it,
I was thinking a lot of things.
generally speaking.
Yeah. Well, I first off, Jeff and I were talking about, there's a lot of cold cases, a lot of cold case stories, not just cold cases, death investigation, but cold cases.
Hmm.
Like I have a serial rapist case out in our jurisdiction, things that haven't been solved, but there's still victims out there.
Okay.
That's maybe a different.
No.
I'll talk about that in a second. But I always thought that it would be interesting to have a show where you have two police officers or two people with former police experience and probably one of the most well-known psychic investigator talking about these things. I just thought it would be interesting
Sure.
from a different perspective, rather than just have people who don't have any connection, never done an investigation before, talking about it, narrating it. I mean, at least you could get it from
Okay.
a different angle.
Here's a thought to throw back and comment below, subscribe, because we can either do more like this or we can switch it to podcasts. We're an open door because we want to make different, we want to change a lot of things that are going on in the world. So, as a psychic investigator, I have had police academy training along the way. And that's because they were uncomfortable making me pretend that I was their secretary or so when I was helping solve the cases. So, what I learned also is on my end, sometimes I have to be there in person. Sometimes I have to do it over the phone. And not because the other side is telling me that here physically, but some download is saying go, and others are going, no, just pick up the phone and do it. And other moments, it's don't say a word to me. Let me just tell you what I see. So my end of it is different to start with. You get the call or you get the folder, you get the case. Go do it. Right? Start reading, start looking. And as one detective I worked with said, drop everything and just feel it. Right? That's part of your system. So each of us has a different system because we're working from a different perspective within us, not without, but within us, right? I want both of you, one at a time. Let's say you bring up, when you said serial, mm, without repeating the terms, I got called in on one. And I said it was very important for me to be with one of the victims. Didn't know why. So for you, I'm going to stop right there and say, if you've worked on one of those cases of a serial abuser who doesn't know them necessarily, what's the first step you take?
What can I talk about? What my hesitation would be, kind of just
Hmm.
in a case like that. We have a guy who was convicted, went to prison, put on a sex offender registry, and there were other victims. He had like a trophy case out in the forest somewhere. And no, this was all over the news. No victim came forward. My biggest concern is, obviously you never want to re-victimize a victim. And those who are out, these other people who are in this trophy case, um, I'm on the edge with this because it's almost like I know that they have a lot of trauma from this stuff, and but I don't also respecting the place. I don't want to force. Um,
Got it.
do, do you see?
So I know exactly, well, as a victim myself of those things, I can say to you, the best people to ever talk with them and rightfully talk with them is to sit with them and be a female who's been there or a male who has been there, one or the other. But anyone else, when we look at Law and Order and Mariska, and she's become a very prominent figure in humanitarian work of that sort, I get that. But there is a history there, one of a female leader who is kind and soft. You don't know the history there, but this is still movie, film. It isn't real. I've sat with many of other victims of it. And because I can say to them, when they say something to me that's appropriately an open door for me to say, do I look like I've ever been a victim in my life? No, because they know me by then, right? And then you can heal also. Then you can move forward also. They do need that, but they also need to know, and you're the one, if you have to do that work, has to know a feel whether they understand how important it is, not for their own healing only. It's not enough for a lot of them, because during the time things happened to me, there was no help whatsoever. I mean, none. But I sought out others, and I looked at other abuse, and I tried to stop it. And my first murder mystery I'm writing is all about stopping them in the middle, getting them to stop, because it matters. The universal part of a victim is, why would you ever want anyone else to encounter this? But once the person has been caught and proven to actually be that, how safe do they still feel now? So I would say, if I were in their shoes,
Yeah.
if I were speaking to any of them, and I was you, not me, my approach would be, we know he's convicted. We know he is put away. We also know systems have been known to change, and I want to ensure that this man never gets anywhere to harm anybody else.
He's out. And that was a race when I was given the case. It wasn't my original case. I was given it by one of us, another supervisor said, run with this thing. It was a race against time to try to find these victims. Quite frankly, I know that he's going to re-victimize again. I mean, this is what this guy did already.
Right.
And so it was a race against time. They try to find these this trophy case and try to get these victims help. And I know they exist, and we just couldn't find it.
I, the only way to find anything I find in a situation like that is somebody who can open up the door with the victims. And less than that, you're not getting anywhere. Because
Yeah,
when one victim comes, the others start following. Usually, not always, but usually. And today's world, definitely. But we're not talking today. It was a while ago, that
yeah,
case.
yeah.
Right. Which means you can look back 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years and blah, 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 and find nothing. It's like missing abducted children from parents, right? Many of them were parentally abducted. But before you had communication between states and countries and real communication, never seen again. Yoko Ono, her her daughter, her son, I think it was her son, was abducted by an ex-husband. She went around the world searching. I don't know that she ever found him. So we're in today's world where communication goes much speedier. In today's world, it wouldn't be so hard to find a person to approach on that, right? And you have enough female officers, which you didn't have back then, right? More and more entering the field. And so, and not all of them are soft enough to talk to a victim. You need training. So I understand the frustration you live with. So now we're going further down the road on that, because you're still living with that case. From the time we met, you started talking about it.
Yeah, I put a lot of time into it. And I got to the point where no victims came forward and we know they exist. That I figured out, no one came forward, is all over the news and they don't want to be known. And I figured I don't want to
Right.
traumatize them at that point. So that's kind of where it just sat.
How do you feel now about it for yourself? How do you live with it?
Um, that's my biggest fear. I don't want to re-victimize a victim. But I also know this guy. Listen, this guy did it once and went to prison before the sex offender registry came out.
Mhm.
He was in the fire department. Then he got back in because there was absolutely no standards in the town. Climbed to fire chief and was doing it again. This time he gets put away, and he obviously got put in the sex offender registry. He's been out a few years now, and everyone knows the guy's going to re-victimize.
Okay,
Everybody,
hold on, hold on. Uh, Everyone who's watching this will go, well, wait, what do you do about that?
uh,
Right? So I don't know what legally is permitted. I would be questioning, so you know his social security number. Do you know if he has any kind of other, not just a sexual registry, but um, insurance companies and anything else? And where's he living? And do the local police know who he is? And is he on the, are they on notice that he's on the sexual offender registry?
oh yeah,
So everyone's watching, kind of. Do they have his license plate, the latest car he's driving, right? How do you know? How did the public? Okay, I'm going a little crazy here, and Jeff, pop in if you have any answers on this. But yeah, mm, I'm a female with a history of having had been attacked several times, different people. Got it. I'm listening to all this. I'm not part of it. I'm not the psychic detective. I'm not it. I'm just another person watching this and going, what? Really? Why aren't people on notice? Why aren't they knowing if he's on that list? Why aren't there photos of him all over the web now?
yeah, because it's
Why not? Illegal? Is it on a registry that people can see online?
yeah. Well, yeah, they can, but I think and this was also in a serial murder case I was working up with a couple friends in Massachusetts. The cases keep coming in. So say you're in a city of 50,000 people, cases are coming in constantly, and unfortunately, the old cases sit and
Hmm,
they sit a long time, and there's less resources put towards those
sure.
cases, and it gets frustrating. And then for me, for example, I'm no longer a police officer in that jurisdiction. I did talk to the chief. He wants to have a talk tomorrow actually about this case. He doesn't have an issue with me talking about it, whatnot, specifics of it, but I no longer have the jurisdiction in that town anymore. So it becomes even harder. Not that I couldn't go out and look for these things, but it's just another.
No, I'm saying in today's world,
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong, and people who watch, correct me if I'm wrong. If there's a registry that we know, and we know there's nothing wrong with mentioning a town, is there?
No, no, no.
What town?
Of where he was or where he is now.
Where he is now.
I have no idea where he is now. I could look it
Okay,
up on a
where he
sex offender
was.
registry.
Where he
It,
was.
it, it was Coventry, Connecticut. It was all over the papers, all over the news.
Okay. And what year was that? Roughly.
2015, 10 years ago.
Okay. Thank you. So if everyone's listening up, any of you love going on web and checking out everything around that time, go for it and put it out there in social media. I don't know that there's any other way because we have to stand up. People who are not part of the system of it, I get it. And, I was looking back and checking things out for myself, and I've taken 7 oaths of confidentiality.
Yeah,
Crazy. I've worked with several federal agencies. I work with local, state, confidential informant once. Crazy stuff. But cannot talk about those, right? Got to be very careful. However, as a victim myself, I can easily say, folks, I stand up. I don't care. I mean, what are you going to do to me if I say something? I am a victim. So I can take the role of victim and say, if I can look that up, I bet I can find out who that is. But knowing if we can follow him or not, no. But on social media, people can post anything they feel like posting as long as you do not accuse at all because you're not there, unless you're the person who is accusing them and can prove it. Other than that, you can just say, oh my God, look what I found. And he's living over here. Watch out, girls. Watch out. Moms, keep them safe. Watch out, teenagers. Watch out. We can do that, and we need to. This is a time that you don't let anybody get away with anything. We have the communication skills. So I understand what you're saying, Brian, because per capita, when you worked in that town of about 50,000, let's say.
That wasn't even, it was maybe like 15,000. It was a tiny
Okay.
town.
How many staff members in the police force was there?
Ah, 14.
Right, thank you. And how many cases came in per month or week or day or anything?
There was a number. I mean, it was a lot more than the resources would allow.
Exactly. So people have to wake up and understand, don't blame unless you know. You can't. So I'm not talking about blaming the person on a registry that's already been proven several times, went to prison a couple of times, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah, from what I understand, yeah.
So we know that usually they don't change. And if they do, they have made a difference in the world by forming a nonprofit, helping others who come out do the right thing. I remember in New York, when the guy who started it to find jobs for people, he had been in prison a long time. He was wonderful. I knew him. I can't remember his name now. I'm old, so I haven't both an excuse, but he was fabulous and he helped a lot of people do the right thing, both in hiring people and in giving them space to be truly uh, appropriate now in society. So that was great. But you're looking at small towns, big towns, cities, and go, you got to be kidding. I think we have 65,000 people here. And I don't know, we may have 26 staff.
But even separate from this case, Nancy, what I wanted to do, maybe with the three of us, specific, not even specific to this case, is just, I don't know, take a look at just cases in general. I mean, just get like, I don't know, I see people narrate podcasts. I see people narrate who have no connection or no understanding is a better word of, they're just narrating a case that they, it's all, listen, all the things we talk about is all public information. I mean, I'm the same
Mhm.
thing that I have to be very careful what I say and certain things, and which is why it's hard. And that's which is why I would even talk to the chief of police. 'Cause I can't talk about certain things without going through the proper channels. It's just, unfortunately, it's the way it is.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, you want
but
it to get to court if it goes to court, so you have to do it that way.
right, right. But on a separate note, it was just generically, I see podcasts where two people are narrating a case, and they make comments about the case, but do they really understand the police dynamics within the cases? I think, and that's kind of where I wanted to, I was
Absolutely.
talking to Jeff about that, and I'm like, this would be kind of cool. I mean, he understands the stuff. He did it. I've done it. Just be an interesting. Not saying there aren't police officers out there that do podcasts, but the ones that I see that are fairly well known, they're just two people narrating.
Right. You know, hmm, people have a lot of questions, and because of open communication so often, there is a question mark about why certain things happen and why not training. So I know that there's not across the board training in psychology or testing new officers or pre-tested on their psychological makeup. I understand. It's town by town, city by city, state by state. And those who don't have enough money for testing, those who don't care, or, no, he's my cousin, give him a badge. I've seen it. And then we see all the misogynistic, I've encountered it twice, yeah, out of hundreds of times, twice, extreme misogynistic attitudes. When it comes to, she was murdered because she was a tramp. No, I didn't keep my mouth shut. I just looked at him and said, so if you screwed around outside of your marriage, what do we call you? Because I knew he did. I could tell. And he just looked at me with daggers. And I'm thinking, we have a long way to go here. So I think that part of what you're saying, part of it, has to also broaden the scope of what is wrong with the training in some areas and how we can help that. And one of the people I'd like to bring on is Richard Pompelio, whose son Tony was murdered when he heard screams of a young girl. He was 17, and she was being attacked by a guy, and Tony tried to stop him and was murdered. That was 30 something years ago. He was an attorney, Richard, and as his wife, and he left the firm that he had and created the New Jersey Crime Victim Law Center, giving grants and pro bono for crime victims. He has worked, I think, easily 10,000 cases, right? He is an expert in the rules, and he made reference books. The first one is for judges that he gave 7,000 to every judge in the state of New Jersey. He helped change rules and laws. And he has a second one in which I am cited as being a very important tool to use. And I'm going, Richard, I want to see the judge's face when they read that, or the captain's faces. I just want to see their comments. But I know that there is this blend in you and Jeff. And the blend to me is also coming to everything you say, plus, if we don't teach how to use your gut instinct and what that means, what that actually means physically, physiologically, and emotionally and mentally and spiritually, then you are not going to solve all the cases. Ross English was the guy who started my work, pulled me in, and ended up working with me 10 years. In the first couple of months we worked together, he became County Chief of Detective of the Year. He solved far more cases just freeing himself up because he was already trusting his intuition. He was already going on his gut feeling about things. Nobody argued the point with him. It was a small community, comparatively speaking. And he had his say, right or wrong. But he did incredible work, not always approved of or liked or etc. by others. Didn't matter to him. He wore blinders. So what does it take for us to help others free up, but also restructure? How do you get to be a police officer? I want to get from the ground up. You know, is it across the board? It's not in the nation across the board training, right? Jeff,
You know,
right?
I was going to say, Nancy, it's different. I got a survey from the police academy, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. I've never seen this in 32 years of policing. How do we retain police officers? Do we give hiring bonuses? Do we give retention bonuses? Do we give free education? I just sat back and I just, I mean, of course, I gave my own personal answers, but we're in a time where no one wants to be a police officer anymore. A
Well,
lot has changed. And you cannot get, when I applied for one position, there's 1,000 people that applied. Now, we can't even get one. We've had a hiring out for a while now. We can't even get one person who wants to come up to where we are. It's times have changed.
oh, I know. During the pandemic, let's see, I'll be 82 in weeks. But I would get the cards from the state You don't have to retake your nursing license. Come back. I'm going, you're insane. You're just totally insane. So
Right.
when you go for this and you're telling us that, I'm sorry, but the word ICE has really offended so many for so many reasons that nobody wants to touch anything to do with,
Law enforcement. Yeah.
yeah, any of it. They don't want to participate. It's frightening to a lot of people, not only the innocent who are being captured and crazy, insane, no words for that, just, mhm. But when people are associating police with the force only, that word, then you got big trouble here. So how do we open up a door to discover? I believe we need Richard to help us because he can talk to the senators, the Congress. He can talk anywhere in the country, and he has. And so we need a situation where what can we present to ensure that the people who would like to do it, but now, oh my God, no, right? They see war coming and they're terrified, rightfully so, right? And I understand the arguments back and forth, but no matter what we say, it reminds me of a dear friend, Lou Beretti, PhD in psychotherapy, good guy, said, two people are sitting by the river, pulling out drowning people, and one turns to the other and says, "Don't you think we ought to go at the beginning, at the head of it, and find out why they're falling in?" So the lack of people who want to do anything, we have to start at the bottom on that and see how we can make people proud to serve in a way that is harmless. Like the town I live in, oh my God, I am so grateful, grateful, grateful. It is an amazing town. Uh, there were 56 police officers from the bottom up, anything. They won the lottery maybe 8, 10 years ago. Not one retired. They love it here. And I've had to call them when my husband had a concussion and I couldn't move him. They were there, 1, 2, 3, helpful, kind. There was a dare that was injured. I said, please don't shoot him. He said, don't worry, I won't shoot him. I know he's your friend. I mean, they had training and certifications long, right? And everything needed. David Heater was the captain in a town west of us. I did a crash scene somewhere else. I'm not going to comment. That was the one of the two misogynistic groups I ever saw. Uh, I would not want to be with him. But he, when I did a crash scene evaluation, came back and had the families take a look at it with him also. Said 3 pages of crash scene certifications, the expert, right? That's training. We don't have that anymore. If I'm not mistaken, we don't. The question is why and what we can do to instill protocols for entering into the police work, entering into it. I think you have to be certified in how to talk to a teenager, how to talk to an abuser, how to talk to a victim of sexual abuse, how to talk to the families of crime victims. Not on the spot, first day of work, you get this case and you're going. That's crazy. And a lot of it happens that way. So can we work from the bottom up? And I'm going to ask Jeff, any,
There's part of it, Nancy. We go through, even when I went through back in the 90s through the police academy, the stuff you mentioned is touched on. It's You're limited by time and amount of weeks, but each one of those things of victims and teenagers and learning people, like that's part of that thing. But the other thing I think you look at is just top down. I mean, bottom up's important for entry level, but you know, people when someone doesn't stay somewhere, they people don't leave jobs, they leave poor culture and bad leadership.
Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
right? So I think when you look at that as we all, top down, we have to be willing to take a hard look at that. I see emails that come out through different municipalities and people share stuff with me in conversations, and you there's a there's a commonality that a lot of police officers don't feel like their department has their back, and they ask them to go out and do these things, and when the person doesn't stop for the blue lights and it becomes a negative interaction with the police officer, the first thing that happens is the department dumps really hard on the police officer for basically doing what the department asks them, trains them to do. And even me, I'm like, man, it's hard to really sit down and go out and feel good about doing your job. I think those are parts. And then I also see sometimes that we've been trained not to stop and help that person on the side of the road. We don't go over and
Right.
have this sense of service like we used to do. When you look at some of your New York subway incident, guy control situation, ends up getting charged and indicted for trying to help society. And people now would, even general citizens, are going to put blinders up when anything's going on because they don't. I don't want to get involved in somebody else's mess trying to help someone from losing their life or getting hurt or whatever. And the next thing you know, I'm sitting in jail away from my kids and family because I was trying to help and do the right thing. So I think there's culture and leadership is really things that pop in my head with that, and just where
Yeah.
we are in times.
Hold on. I want to go back to the beginning of what you first said. How long was your academy training?
Back then it's 15 weeks.
Okay, stop right there. Stop right there.
Now I think
How,
now I
wait a
think it's
minute.
30.
Oh, hold on. Jeff, Brian, how long was your academy training?
Back then, I think it was 4 months, but I think at least 6 months now.
Okay, hang
They,
on.
they,
Hang on.
okay.
Nurses, minimum 2 to 4 years, minimum, before you can step out on your own. Not allowed.
Well, that's not stepping out on your own, though, Ness, because then you then have to go through a 4 month
Yeah.
training period once you get to your department. So you're looking at least.
Okay, thank you. But that's not true throughout the nation. What I'm saying is we have a standardized for nursing. You don't get a bachelor's until you have your 4 years, or unless you did 3 and 4 something. You don't get in teaching. You can't go out and go to a school system and teach until you did that and your training. Uh, you can't write a script in medicine or nurses practitioner until you did the policing, which is so important to do right, because it hosts the authority power over some situation that can be a very traumatic one for everybody, including the officer working it, right? That's the shortest amount of training of anything you can name in a profession. That doesn't make sense to me. You can't prove
Sure.
it to me.
Uh,
It doesn't. Not unless there's something else where they're mandatory, but it has to be nationwide. Because what you're saying, Jeff, what you're saying, Brian, is where you are, you probably have taken other courses. You
Oh
have
yeah.
gone on your own in your interest in working with things. You have learned from what works and what doesn't work. You are leaders in your field where you are. You both have been there, right? I get that. But I know factually, I had 2 years of nursing, but my real nursing career training came on weekends, working for a physician, and summer vacations, where I worked at Liberty Hospital, in New York, upstate, and saw a fire and did crisis. We were up 72 hours straight trying to save lives, burn victims. That was my training, better than the very careful clinical. I get all that, and yet that wasn't enough, for sure, for most people. So I'm looking at today's world and saying, I get what you're saying, but how good is the officer training the person once they've gone through the academy? How deep is it? Is it all evidence-based forensics? Is there anything else about communication?
I think, Nancy, if I can, I think
Yeah.
first off, like up in Connecticut, Connecticut is a phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal job in training police officers. I think, like what Jeff's saying, I think all places are all limited to time.
Yep.
There's only so much that they can teach, and I think that it's expanded, from 4 months to 6 months because they have that much more that they have to teach. You're never going to get every exposure to everything, so they try to get everything they can
Uh-huh.
in an academy, and it's really more experience based when you're on the street. The only problem is, at least where I was, actually, it happened not too long ago. When I came out, brand new out of the academy, we were short an officer, so I got put on the road by myself. There was nobody.
That's crazy.
I was covering midnight shift. I had no clue what I was doing. I had to learn from the school
Crazy.
of hard knocks. Crazy. So that was many years ago, 30 years ago. But if I go back, I'm gonna say not even 10 years ago, there was an apartment, similar thing, two guys brand new, not even out on the road. I think it was a month. And these two were working by themselves. They told me by themselves. They had a guy who wanted to kill himself on a roof of a house, who wanted to set it on fire. I think he wanted to set it on fire. And they're like, why are we? There's no supervisor out there. I mean, it's absolutely mind blowing to think that some towns, because when you get out, it gets in a whole other set of rules of seniority and order ins and all sorts of other things. So that's, I think, what happens in more rural towns. I think in cities, obviously, is a much, you have a much more structured, more people.
Have to be.
Yeah, have to
But
be 100%.
for me, when I look at this, I look at it also through the lens of being an environmentalist and what other countries are doing for the environment that works. And I would say the same thing. We're still going back to the same issues in certain respects, but if I leave assault weapons aside for a moment, even though I think that's a biggie, right? But what you're saying is so true. It's why nursing, even though I had only 2 years, our teachers worked directly with us
Yeah, yeah,
step by step. We were never left alone to do anything. So when you had a code blue or stat tray needed, or they were right there with us so they can capture and tweak us on anything that happened. If you don't have that in trauma, which is police work, is trauma work, period. I think it can also be great service. In New York City, in one police plaza, there was a guy there I had actually gone out with in a love, a good soul. He was the commissioner or something of community presence kind of thing, where it was so important for everyone not to be afraid of them, but to come to them for help. And so I think that's piece of it. So why don't we bring in other people who might have done great jobs somewhere besides what you're saying? And this is audio, by the way, and video. So I can separate the audio and you can have your podcast right here and see what happens and comments, because we are looking for restructuring, not for our sake so much, but for generations to come. How do we make a life here where people feel they can go to someone for help and get it? But when people are desiring to do service in law enforcement, they have the support. They have the proper support side by side. They don't go into, what you were saying, Jeff, and what you were saying, both of you have been exposed to these crazy crises, right? I have been exposed from a different point of view, including watching something happen, reporting it, and finding that they had an association, I'm saying it very loosely, with somebody that they were seeing in the police force who said, nah, that'll get away with almost killing somebody. And I was like, really? This is how you treat people? So I know we have to start at the bottom and work up. It's what road do we want to take to start with? It's not just for your town or that one person out there who's doing the crazy, harmful. It is how do we help? Because people travel throughout the states, people come from other countries, people travel away. How do we help people start feeling safer who want to enter service and look at the cases that have already happened that you can speak about, either one of you, and see if we can move things? Because that old line, see something, say something, has been my motto, and I've got in trouble for that. I don't care. That's fine. I mean, I sat with a woman with a 13-year-old son, and I saw her smash him with her fist on his leg. And at that time, we had these old handheld phones. And I was used to New York where everything would happen, 1, 2, 3, right? And I had just been in Jersey. So she's sitting there with him, and I pick up the phone. She said, "Who are you calling?" I said, "Social services." She said, "What?" I said, "Because you're an abuser." She's looking at me. She said, "No, I'm not." And I said to the 13-year-old, "Does she do this regularly?" He said, "Yeah." She said, "No, I don't." I said, "If you can do it in front of me, you do it regularly. So shut up." And I called social services. They took him away from her, brought his father in. His father called me crying that he had his son finally back after years of her convincing whoever that she was the rightful person to raise him. This kid was filled with bruises. And I'm thinking, where did I land? What is wrong with this place? So we have to always start with the fundamentals of how did we get here, as you're saying, where there's so many who don't want to join now. We know part of it is what's
You know, we
happening in this
I,
country.
we had a woman in front of mine has a, I would just say his father's widow. She was scammed this past year of well over $450,000. Try to get somebody. Now, the police department in that jurisdiction has been absolutely phenomenal, but try and get somebody from the elder abuse unit in a state. Good luck. I'm in a system. I can't even find a name. It just
Okay.
goes into a portal, and you're
Yeah.
waiting and you're waiting and you're wondering if they're going to take the case. It's crazy, absolutely
No,
crazy.
no, we're going to bring on Leonie Rosenthal one day. I'll ask her to come on. She wrote Protect Mama because of elder estate crazy stuff that happened, and became an award-winning author of many books about legalities, and now works with I don't know how many lawyers nationwide or statewide. She speaks everywhere. And you need people to get Congress to in states,
Bigger.
right? Mayors, budgets, you need, where do you start though? So I want Richard because he's great at knowing where you start making change too. So let's make a list of those that we think can work with us and bring them on, and let's see what they say too.
It's interesting. It's interesting that we come on. Well, I came on thinking maybe podcast, but there's just so much to talk about. I mean, there's just so much in general to talk about.
Yeah, but we can, this, these meetings are also audio separate. So besides video audio. And so it's easy to put them on both places because the more we can get people to give input anywhere they live. So the folks, if you're listening or watching personally, wherever you live, you have your own personal experience about this. We need that. You know, everything comes about from research and from people stepping up and just telling the truth. So more of the comments, the better. And if you hit subscribe and the bell, you'll always be notified when these guys are on. So this is just a drop in the bucket. We're bringing up more questions than answers by far. But if we all serve together, we can form things. Here I go. So when I got ticked off about the lack of real holistic education, back when I wrote a piece, I created a magazine, Conscious Living, with my husband, and I wrote a piece called The Old New Age, because I got all these calls because I did festivals throughout the state of Jersey, and they were like, "I just want to send you a whole barrel of such and such product." And I go, "Nope, no, you can't." Yeah, but we'd like you to, oh, would you like to be the head of a new product coming out and be the director of marketing? Nope, thank you. Nope. Because I look at every ingredient and I go, really, where'd you get it? Where'd you source it? What'd you do? And I'm going, you're all crazy here. You're just jumping on a money wagon. What is wrong with all of you? So in the same sense, it's kind of an all or nothing that I hear, throughout the country. Not everybody is inappropriate. Not everybody doesn't get caught. I mean, plenty of people walk the street who are murderers. I know that. I've seen where bodies get dumped. I know where they get dumped, but they don't always until DNA gets even better and better and better. You could sit and wait, and then you can't afford, and then there's this whole list before yours comes on. I get all that. So I want everyone to hear this and jump in with us, because every time these things happened, I made a nonprofit. Well, my husband and I became the leaders of a nonprofit in our state for the country. And we met people who were incredible in making change. And it's still not happening. But we can do this for generations to come. You're looking at Jeff, you're looking at Brian, and I know them as being people who care about the future generations. They want to make a difference. I want to make a difference. You want to make a difference. I know that. Otherwise, you don't watch these things. You're not just watching because, oh, it's so interesting. No, you're watching because it resonates with what you're going through or your experience or your relatives' experience or your best friends who live elsewhere. And how come when they move to some other place, it's peaceful and quiet? Go look at Instagram and see Finland, Iceland. All these countries are models of why aren't we there? Because we have a lot more people in here and a lot more anger here and a lot more assault weapon manufacturing here. If we want to make a difference, we have to start somewhere. Otherwise, you just collapse and exhaust. So we need your comments. We need your information. We need your research. Go look, as he said from the very beginning, go look at that town in Connecticut about 10 years ago or so, 15 years ago. Go look, go tell. It's okay. As long as we're appropriate and don't use words that will have us thrown off, we'll be fine.
I think what surprised me in that particular case was that the town itself, and I don't work for a town anymore, and I'm hesitant saying it, but I don't really care anymore. There was no standards. How do you let somebody who is a convicted felon or whatever, there's got to be standards in the people that represent you. There has to be. And, I understand, much like you said before, people change 100%. People, 99.9% of the people I interact with are phenomenal people. They make mistakes just like we do, just like everybody does. We all make mistakes, and it's life lessons. But to have people who do heinous things come out and then get into positions of authority when there's no standards in a background, I shake my head. Absolutely shake my head. And I don't know if that changed within a town or not. I hope it did.
Well, it's towns, it's states, it's leaders. As you said, there's a leadership issue. Jeff, you mentioned it very clearly. And I know my badge comes from a commissioner in our state. And when he knew something was very inappropriate, not him, but somebody, that guy was kicked out of a very top office. No problem.
Well, it's funny, Ness.
Don't let it happen.
I think of this case I had. I was going through Dunkin Donuts drive-through, and a couple of the workers said to me, "Hey, Officer Brian, there's a gentleman working at the window, who was arrested for, you know, I guess he was in jail for basically kidnapping a kid when he was younger, sodomizing the whole nine yards. And he's in the drive-through window of a Dunkin' Donuts right across the street from a grammar school. Do you think that's appropriate? Like, what are you thinking? Like, seriously, what are you thinking?" And I actually had a talk with this kid, and he said, I don't even know how to survive where I'd rather be back in prison because I've been in there for 20 years. And I'm thinking to myself, who in their right mind would take somebody and put them in a drive-through window who has exposure to kids right across the street from a grammar school? These are decisions that I just, you can't say certain things when you're in certain positions because there's
Right.
code of conduct and things like that. But I shake my head. I'm like, oh my God.
Okay, so if you had resources at that point to,
Oh,
no,
that got corrected.
resources,
Yeah.
right, to say, listen, this is going on here, what do we do? And for me, it was in New York City, if you picked up a phone to social services on anything, you got called back. You got told what was going on. Thank you for reporting it. Thank you for doing the service. Jersey, when I called up about this kid that was being abused by his mom, oh, we don't call you back. None of your business what we do.
Wow.
Welcome to Jersey, right? It
Wow.
was the father who called me and told me what happened. They went to court and all the reports were there. The fact that I was in her, they never called me for facts. They never even called me to find out how I found this out. But somebody did somewhere along the line, but not them. They wouldn't tell me anything. It was like closed door. And I thought, oh, welcome to no one helping each other. So the difference you're pointing out, I've been through. New York City was like running in an ICU, we called it back then. I had 8 patients, all critical and alone. I buzzed that button in the old Lincoln Hospital, now destroyed. When I pressed the button in that unit, you heard a stampede of people running down on a short-staffed big hospital coming there. And just for the difference, woman thrown out of 3 floors by an ex-husband while her 3-year-old watched. Every Sunday, she was rushed to surgery. Spleen broken. You named the bone, it was crushed. You named the organ, it ruptured, right? In that hospital, when she was released, she had not one bed sore known as decubiti. Never had one. Press a button, everyone would come to move her with me. Post up. Incredible. She was a survivor because of everybody in that hospital understood you serve. Nobody had to be told. Nobody had to be informed or promised more or anything. Everybody was in it together. A year afterwards, she walked in with her baby thanking us. There was not a dry eye. He was in prison. That's what I expected from any place I work. And no, so nursing has its own issues for sure. Law enforcement has the service, the community of service needs a lot more network connections. And I know a guy. So we'll start with him and he probably knows others too. And thank you guys for being on and jumping on this morning. Folks, let us know if this helps you. And again, subscribe, hit the comments, tell us what's going on in your state. Tell us. We're happy to hear. And I will pass it all over to them too. So thanks, Brian. Thanks, Jeff. Have a great day. And I will post this sometime today.
Oh, good.
Oh,
Sounds
yeah.
great.
It's going right back up. Take care. Bye.